It was the summer of 1993, a quiet Midwestern town where folks trusted their neighbors, where children rode bikes until sunset, where the biggest gossip was usually about Friday night football. But one August evening changed everything. Rachel Myers, just 21 years old, a college student, a daughter, a best friend. She worked evenings at a little bookstore on Main Street. The kind of girl everyone described as kind, dependable, and full of life. But on August 17th, Rachel never came home. Her parents waited by the window. Midnight passed. Then, too, by morning, her mother knew something was wrong. The call came at sunrise. A jogger had found Rachel's body near the riverbank. The scene was brutal. She had fought hard. There were scratches on her arms, defensive wounds. But her attacker was stronger. Police scoured the area. No fingerprints. No murder weapon. Just a few fibers. And a bloodstain too small for 1990s technology to analyze. The town was shaken. Parents locked their doors. Rumors spread like wildfire. Who could do something so cruel in a place like this? Detectives moved fast. They questioned boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, co-workers. They brought in strangers who had passed through town that week. Nothing stuck. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. Leads dried up. Witnesses forgot details. The case grew colder with every season. But one person never stopped calling the station. Rachel's mother. Every year, on her daughter's birthday, she phoned detectives. Her voice cracked with the same question. Any updates? Any news at all? And every year, the answer was the same. No, ma'am. We're still waiting. Fast forward 3 decades. By now, DNA technology had advanced far beyond the imagination of those early detectives. New labs, new databases, and new hope for families like Rachel's. The cold case unit decided to reopen the file. They pulled out evidence sealed away in plastic bags since the 90s, and there, on a scrap of fabric, was a tiny speck, preserved for 30 years. A strand of DNA. It was sent to the lab, cross-checked, run against national databases. And when the results came back, detectives froze. The name wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a drifter. It wasn't any of the suspects they once chased. It was one of their own, Detective James Holloway, the very man who had led Rachel's case 30 years ago, the man who had stood at press conferences, assuring the public they'd find her killer, the man Rachel's mother had trusted every year to deliver justice. Behind the badge had been the murderer all along. Investigators dug deeper, and what they found was chilling. Reports had been misfiled. Evidence had gone missing. Leads were deliberately ignored. Holloway had built a wall of lies around himself, pointing suspicion everywhere but home. And the motive? Witnesses came forward saying Holloway often visited the bookstore where Rachel worked. He lingered too long. He asked questions that felt too personal. Rachel, polite but firm, had rejected his advances. And when she did, his obsession turned deadly. When police showed up at Holloway's retirement home, neighbors were stunned. Here was a man they knew as a family man, a grandfather, a smiling face at community barbecues. Now he was being led away in handcuffs. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed. The headlines spread like wildfire. Cold case solved. Retired detective arrested for 1993 murder. At trial, prosecutors laid it all out. The DNA match, the cover-up, the manipulation of an entire investigation. Rachel's mother sat in the front row, clutching a faded photo of her daughter. For 30 years, she had believed in Holloway's promise of justice. Now she knew he was the reason justice had been delayed. The jury deliberated for only a few hours. Guilty. Life in prison without parole. As Holloway was led away, shackled and silent, Rachel's mother whispered to the cameras, "Justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied." The town, once haunted by unanswered questions, finally a closure. And Holloway? He spent his final days behind bars, stripped of the honor he once wore, remembered not as a hero, but as a monster. Because here's the thing about DNA. It doesn't forget. It doesn't lie. It doesn't care how powerful you were or how well you hid. In Rachel's case, DNA revealed a truth more shocking than anyone could have imagined, and it proved that even decades later, justice still has a voice.